Hey y'all, my name is Jasmine Jones and I am a licensed clinical social worker, and you are now watching Black Girl, a Therapist in the Wild. This is a little show I like to call Therapist Sips and Reviews. And today we are reviewing the Interview with the Vampire season 1 and 2. I'm going to try not to make this too long. And we're sipping on Sprite and absinthe. How y'all doing? So, I was like a huge Anne Rice fanatic in undergrad. Well, actually, senior year of high school, freshman year of college, and sophomore year of college. So, I read these books when I was like from the age of 18 to about maybe 21, early 21. I am 37 now. So, I wanted to get this right because I did have a whole period where I was an Anne Rice fanatic, to the point where during Hurricane Katrina, I emailed her to see if she was okay, and she emailed me back, and I still have that email saved. Yes. And so I want to get this right. So I did some research just to see what matched up with the books, because there's multiple books mentioned in this show that they're probably going to get into the other books, because the show is supposed to be based off the first book. There's 13 Vampire Chronicle books. The first book is Interview with the Vampire. The next book is Prince Lestat. The next book is Queen of the Damned. And then I think the next book is The Vampire Armand. I think I read all the way up until the books that started in like the mid 2010s. So I'm going to try my best to try to, it's dense. Like, her favorite character is Lestat. Lestat is either featured in all of the other books, or he is a lead in all of the other books. You see him at least once. He's even in the Mayfair books, which, side note, they ruined the fucking Mayfair Witches show. They did. The person they picked was wrong. The way they did the story was wrong. That bitch was a bad bitch. I even re-listened to while I was in New Zealand, because everywhere you went, it was a 3-hour drive. So I re-listened to the whole Mayfair Witches books, all of them. And yeah, just before I watched the show, just to be sure that they weren't. I re-listened to all of them, Lasher, the witch, whatever the first book was called. It wasn't called the Mayfair Witch, it was called something else, Witch something. And Tautos and shit. And they fucked that show up, and I feel upset and I feel bothered, and it's problematic for me. But anyways, he's even featured at some point with the Mayfair Witches. This is her favorite character. I just feel like Lestat, is she describing herself in some type of way? Because as the books go along, his character gets really convoluted. It's so like dense, and it's just, I think that's why I stopped reading it after a while. I was just like, I was tired of Lestat and his ways and his forever loneliness, and the shit that he did to make excuses for his loneliness, or the shit that he did that he used loneliness as an excuse for. And it was just like, and then it started to get like kind of corny, like Lestat in Atlantis. Lestat meets the devil. So I'm not trying to shit on her books. I'm just saying, like, it's a lot. So bear with me. I'm going to try not to make this super duper long. It's 2 seasons. You're going to hear some interspersed stuff from the books if I see fit for it. If I am wrong about something from the books, or the show I watched, like I think I got the show, but the books I haven't read in a long time, and I only did some quick Wikipedia and some Reddits to just catch up on some stuff, okay, to jog my memories. So, like, if I get some shit wrong from the book, just kindly let me know, and then we can chat about it. But otherwise, let's go. So anyways, we start off the show with Louie de Pontelac. And in the book, he is this white man that owns a plantation. His dad died, and he's just sad and miserable. In the show, he is this black man that is trying to run his dead father's estate. And he also, crooks, thieves, prostitutes, sex workers. He's all up in that, so he already got some mental health shit going on, some conniving shit going on. But like, that was the only type of jobs that he could get as a black man in the early 1900s South in New Orleans. So that was what he was doing. He was running a whorehouse and doing a bunch of other stuff. And, he also, I feel like the depression was already there before Lestat came. His dad died before Lestat came. In the book, his brother Paul had already died in the book. That was what was making him, his brother dying and his dad dying in the book was what was already making him feel depressed and stuff. So he already had that in him. So he's like, doing his thing around town. And of course, Lestat spots him. Lestat is coming off from the book that he wrote, The Vampire Lestat. He's coming off a sojourn with the vampire that made Armand. And he had been staying at his house doing whatever. And this is the summary that I read so that I could remember. Staying at his house doing whatever. And Marius is his name. And he was guarding the queen of the vampires and the king of the vampires. And he ended up drinking the queen's blood when Marius told him not to. So Marius kicked him out. And so he came to New Orleans. That's what he was doing before he got to New Orleans. So he came to New Orleans. He spots Louie. And he's like, oh, I can smell the despair on this motherfucker, and he cute, so we about to fuck. And so he stalks him. So he's a stalker, he's a narcissist. And let's get this straight right now. We're starting with the foundation that all these vampire niggas are sociopaths. So I'm not giving these characters the romanticization y'all might be looking for. A lot of people have, and there's some redemption, I guess, later on. Some of them decide not to eat the people and things like that, but like, the way they are in the first 3 or 4 books, no, they some sociopaths, killing people. Louis is always just sad. He's sad and miserable and doesn't want to kill people. He's one of them toxically depressed people that just can't get it together, and he always is searching for things outside of himself to make himself feel whole, and it never works because that just attracts predators, and the predators get attached to him, and then it just fucks up his life. So like, they're all sociopaths. And then we can add to that, like, maybe some borderline personality disorder, some narcissism. I lean more towards borderline, because even though Lestat likes it, maybe it's a mix of both. Even though Lestat likes attention, he has the hysteria and impulsiveness of a borderline when they feel like they're losing somebody. The type of borderline that is more narcissistic, lacking more empathy, because not all borderlines are like that. So he spots Louis, and there's my next victim. He stalks him. He tries to make friends with him. Then they have a little rendezvous one night. They fuck. Louis is a closeted gay man. He is not out in early 1900s. Why do you want to say Las Vegas? Because it's like, I want to say Louisiana, and I want to say Las Vegas, and I'm like, New Orleans, bitch, New Orleans, early 1900 New Orleans. And so, like, in the movie, there is an Interview with a Vampire movie from 1994 with Brad Pitt and Tom Cruise, when Brad Pitt was young and beautiful. And, the nigga that played Lestat kind of looked like him, but he got a bigger jaw and shit. And especially in the second season, he was doing them poses with the light and shit. He knew what the fuck he was doing. And his monologues were monologuing, bitch. But let me pull it back. In the movie, like, what was I gonna say? Oh, there was some like, some like, they weren't together in the movie. Like, in the movie in 1994, they I guess they didn't feel comfortable showing all that, but there was some like undertones that all these niggas was fucking. So if you read the book and then watched the movie and wondered why they weren't fucking in the movie and kissing on each other in the movie like that and shit like that, because it was 1994 and niggas was extra more homophobic than they are today. We get full frontal fucking in this motherfucker. So they have a night together. They fucked and everything. And then Louis feels the type of way. So he tries to keep his distance from Lestat. And this sets Lestat the fuck off. That's where the borderline kicks in. He cannot, once he sets his sights on you and he wants you, he feels like he's God. And like in the books, when he's first turned, it's like he has this cockiness and this confidence in himself, but it's like when he's first turned, he's coming off this traumatic situation where the nigga that turned him had him locked in a tower with a bunch of dead bodies and was feeding off of him for months at a time, and then he turned him into a vampire. So he was super traumatized. And then he was basically Louie in the beginning. So, but the depression didn't last. Like with Louie, throughout all, he gets better, but Louie's just always got this undercurrent of sadness. Lestat more so as a rock star. He became a rock star eventually. But like he likes the attention. He likes to be loud and impulsive. So like even though in the beginning he was kind of depressed about it, and he writes in his book, cause so basically in the Anne Rice universe, Louie writes his little like autobiography with the reporter, and then Lestat he reads Louie's autobiography, and then he writes his autobiography, The Vampire Lestat. And according to him, when he was first turned, he only ate criminals and thieves, and he was not out here trying to kill regular people. And I just feel like it gets convoluted. You don't know what's the truth at this point. Is Louie true? Is Lestat true? What's going on? But in the show, Lestat is just Lestat, and he eating everybody. He eating niggas, and he is, a needy nigga, and he was been needy. In the books, he was needy. He was sad. He was always lonely. There was a point where he had this nigga named Nikki that he was with, and then he got kidnapped and turned into a vampire, and he couldn't leave Nikki alone. I think being trapped in a tower fucked him up so much, because it's like, how much more alone can you be than being alone with the fucking dead? Okay? And so that fucked him up. And so he has this thirst for people. And that, I would assume like vampires would, but I just feel like all the work I've done on myself, I feel like being by yourself isn't that bad. And then you don't have to be by yourself, but like you can be with people and not control them and try to contain them in a little container where you're like the puppeteer puppeting them and shit. And that's that nigga. He's the puppeteer, and he does not want to be puppeted. And so, like, Lestat was fucked up, and then he ended up stalking Nikki, and then he ended up, like, I'm bringing the book in because it fills out the edges of what I'm trying to say. Stalking Nikki, turning Nikki into a vampire, even though he says it was against Nikki. Nikki wanted to be a vampire and was begging him to be a vampire. Turned his mama into a vampire. So he has parents. Like, he even brought, like, in the book, he brings his dad to Louie. There we go. Louie's plantation. And his dad is living there with them for a minute. And then he has Louie kill his dad. Right. So, like, he always just needs to be surrounded by folks. So once he gets his claws into you and decides that he wants you, he sees himself as a god, and he just decides that you're his. He's crazy. And Louie is, after he fucked this nigga, he was just like ashamed and appalled and all this other stuff. So he just didn't want to have any parts of it. And Lestat, that set that motherfucker off to the point where, so in the second season, Louie asked him or maybe it was the first, but one of them seasons, Louie asked him, because in this version, Louie has a family. He has a brother, Paul. He has his sister. His sister is about to get married to this guy. His mom is bougie and kind of trash. And, he's just in the family. He got people. And so his brother, Paul, the one that dies in the book before Lestat even gets to Louie, he got some kind of mental health situation going on where he sees and he may be schizophrenic. And he's really super duper religious, right? So in the show, his brother Paul commits suicide in front of him by walking off the roof and falling to the ground. But before he walks off the roof and falls to the ground, he says that he heard Lestat in his head saying shit. Now, all these niggas is liars. We're going to pull Louie out because Louie got some shit going on, but I don't know if he lying or not completely. But like, at the very least, Armand and Lestat are liars. And so Louie asked Armand, it was in the second season, did you kill my brother? Did you have anything to do with killing my brother? And he asked Lestat that. And Lestat was like, No, of course not. And I just feel like that nigga's lying. I'm not saying that the man didn't have mental health issues and he could have killed himself. I'm just saying, like, I feel like Lestat's lying. I feel like Lestat made that man walk off the roof because that is his MO. Like, we don't just switch up a pattern. Like, people don't understand when people have patterns of behaviors, one thing isn't going to make you switch up. Like, you have to do extensive work on, it's like unlearning a hobby. That right, like unlearning how to ride a bike. That's what changing your behavioral patterns is. And so you have to consider that Lestat's behavioral pattern didn't just change for this one nigga. He knew his brother was holding him to his family. I feel like he killed him. I feel like he got in that nigga's head and made that nigga walk off a roof, because in the beginning of the show, this man said that his brother has his heart. He loves him the most. And Lestat knew that shit. I think he killed him. I think he did. And he lied to Louie. And Louie is just over here. I think Louie just becomes complacent. I think Louie knows that these niggas are lying to him. And he just becomes complacent because he doesn't like himself and he's sad. But anyway, so his brother dies and he flips out and he runs to this church, and Lestat mesmerizes him with his bullshit soliloquy about nothing. About how it's so magical to be like a vampire and see the beauty of death. And my thing is like, you don't understand, like, these people don't have empathy for the fact that other people have lives and souls and they have ambitions and goals, and you are taking away the possibilities of what these people could do later on in the world. Like, they could change the world. Lestat loves art and music and architecture and all this other shit, but then you gonna kill off the niggas that are doing shit like that? Like, you killing off niggas because you feel like you're above them? Like, he killing off niggas that because they don't sing to his, to what he thinks they should sing to and shit, because they off a key or some shit. And it's just like, well, how he wasn't practicing? And when he got to a certain point of practicing, he would have been better than that bitch that was singing. Like, I just want to know, sir, why you think that other people's lives and their ambitions and goals and the things they want to create for their lives don't fucking matter, because you're a sociopath. But anyway, so he turns him into a vampire, right? And like, Louie's feeling himself and shit. Lestat buys him the fancy white, brothel and shit, and he feeling himself. He walking around with his shades on because his eyes change color, but also because I think he thinks he looks cute. And he's just having a good old time. When niggas that are abusive love bomb you and shit, that's what Lestat does. He buys you a bunch of shit. Someone said that's his love language. And I'm just like, you don't know. No. Like, at the very end of the second season, when he's doing his monologue, and you really want to believe that he's sorry, and then he switches it back up to who he really is. That's what, and they said that's what he does. That's who he is. Like, he can, I don't know if it's real, because in the books it seems like he really has the emotional depths to understand the pains that he causes. But then there's this threshold that he meets where if you don't do what the fuck he says, he's going to make you do it, or he's going to kill you. So you just have to meet that threshold, or you just have to stay behind that threshold and he'll be regular. But if you knock against that threshold, he'll kill the fucking shit out of you. So if that tenor could have sang to his liking, he would have, he probably may have kept him alive, or I don't know, maybe not, maybe so, who knows. But anyway, so Louie feeling himself. He got the brothel, he making money, and then here come the white people, because he's still experiencing racism and shit. The white people think he's just another nigga, like he's just a nigger and shit, and so like they fucking with him. Like, he's trying to build this gaming house for this one nigga, and the white man is making him feel like he's less than, so he kills him. And then they trying to change the law up in the red light district to where like the brothels and all the other stuff got to move over to the other side of town, or you can't have black brothels and shit like that on Storyville and shit. So basically, this is a destruction of the red light district because they don't want black people to thrive and whatever the fuck. And so, like, he's feeling the type of way. He ends up killing, like, I think the mayor, some fat white man. and like putting his body on a gate and shit like that. And the thing is that you got to recognize that everything that your abuser touches or gives to you is going to turn to shit eventually. Like, Lestat bought that place for him. He was feeling himself, but he forgot that you're still black, honey. Like, this is the early 1900s. The Ku Klux Klan is wild, and they got laws that says that they can string you up from a tree just for fun. Like, you can't, that's not it, honey. And so like, you forget yourself and you forget where you're at, and no, it's not a good thing that they're in that position, but you don't use the white man that's abusing you as a means to move forward in that environment. That's not what we do. And so, then after he strings this nigga up from the gate, like, all the white people start destroying Storyville, burning down black properties and shit like that. So like, Louie feels all types of ways. He's all fucked up and stuff. And so he wants to save somebody. And before this happened, like, he was visiting his family. So like, this is like when they burned down Storyville, I think like 6-7 years have passed and shit like that. And he's been periodically every 6 months or so visiting his family at nighttime. And they just kind of know now that there's something wrong with him. And then at one point, the last moment that he visited his family, like, they wouldn't let him in the house. So he broke down a door and threw it up against the wall and shit. And they were scared of him. So he left. That was the last time he saw his mama alive. It was horrible. And so he's lost his family. Just like abusers, they separate you from the people you love. I think that nigga killed his brother. I don't give a fuck what nobody say. He left his family. He lost his family. He lost his business. He lost anything that would give him an identity. His own separate individual identity, just to become a part of Lestat's world and shit, right? And Louie, he's tiptoeing the threshold of sociopath, because there are moments where, like, he gets pushed to the edge and he gonna kill somebody. And it's like, and he'll revel in it and shit, and you'll just be like, the fuck? I thought you said that you... But for the most part, he's eating animals, and then he tries to talk Lestat into eating criminals and shit like that. Although in Lestat's book, he says that that's what he was doing and shit. But like, in Louie's mind, like, no, he was killing everybody. He was killing everybody, honey. So anyways, while they're burning down Storyville, he's walking around. He wants to save somebody. He wants to be of service. He wants to, because he feels like he's lost everything because of this nigga. But you gonna stay with this nigga, so what does it matter if you feel like you lost everything? Because you still gonna stay with this nigga. And so he's running around, and then he sees this girl in a burning building and brings her back home. Now, cut here in the book, they had left New Orleans because of like some plague or some shit was happening, and Louie had gone like weeks without eating human blood and had been eating rats and shit like that. And in the book, Claudia is 5. She is a 5. And Anne Rice, every damn book got some pedophile shit in it. So I don't know if some shit happened to her. God rest her soul and God bless her, because you don't bring shit up like that over and over again in your art and it not be coming from a real place, because you need like real emotions and shit from real life that you've experienced in order to create beautiful art. And so I don't know if some shit happens to her, but most of that shit is sexual abuse of children. And then in the books, like, the children enjoy the sexual abuse sometimes. Ew. So if you decide to take a journey into Anne Rice's books, just be prepared. Trigger warning. Every damn book got some shit where children as young as infants are getting molested from infancy to adulthood sometimes, and they enjoy the shit. So it's written out as if they enjoy the shit. I'll say that, because children don't enjoy the shit. They don't. That's not something that happens in real life. They can't enjoy it because their nervous system is still going to react as if they're traumatized. So you going to get you can have somebody out there saying they enjoyed their molestation. Why are you hypersexualized in a way that makes you uncomfortable, in a way that you can't control then? Why? Why do you get rages, or why do you dissociate sometimes when you're doing sexual shit? Because your nervous system was traumatized still, even though cognitively your brain is telling you, no, it was gentle and loving and they cared about me. I know. No, that doesn't happen in real life. So, just be prepared if you decide to go and read her books. So, anyways, in the book, she's 5, right? And so they're going around in the book. They're going around and like getting out of New Orleans, and Louis is so hungry one night, and he just is walking around, and he sees this dead woman and this 5-year-old dying next to her of plague, and he's just so hungry that he drains her. And then here comes Lestat looking at him, and then he dances with the dead mother because he thinks it's funny. And then at this point in the book, Louis ready to leave this nigga. Like, he's done. He's just like, this nigga is violent. He's crazy. He's destructive. I don't want to be involved in this. And so in order to keep Louis, Lestat changes this little baby girl into a vampire. Louis had nothing to do. Louis was disgusted by it in the book. But in the show, we got this like duality of memories and shit. I like how they did it because this is what happens when you dissociate, when you regress. And yes, we got Armand in the picture messing with this nigga's memories and stuff too. But I like how it's illustrated because it clearly shows what it looks like when you dissociate, when you when you have memory regression and you literally don't remember what happened during your traumatic events, and like it just kind of coming to you sometimes just because random things happen in the world that make it come to you. And it can happen at any moment in time. It can happen way off in the future. It can happen a few months after, a few days after the traumatic event. You might remember some shit. It's all up to your mind to decide to pop that memory up or to never let you see it. But, we also have to consider like Armand was doing shit to his brain too, because that was Armand's magical power or whatever the fuck. That was one of them. So like, but in the show, Louis walking around Storyville, right? And he gets this little girl. In the first season, he just looks at Lestat and says, please, can you change her? In the second season, we see a recurrence of the full memory. Either it was repressed or Armand had some shit to do with it. I don't know why Armand would have went all the way that far when he wasn't even involved, but maybe messing with the memory around the time where he met Armand may have affected all the rest of his memories from before he met Armand, but in the second season, it shows Louis is begging this nigga to change this little girl into, a vampire. He dragging a little girl across the floor. It's a whole thing, honey. And I was just like, I can see why they would do that for the development of his character, to show that he's also turning into an abusive person as well. But like, Lestat ain't shit, nigga. Like, don't take that from him. He ain't shit. Like, yeah, like he apologizes for shit, but he keeps doing the same shit over and over again throughout these books, to the point where I don't really care if he apologizes. Like, I have no empathy or sympathy for these characters. I read Anne Rice's book like I would watch a true crime. Like, wow, them niggas is crazy. Like, if they weren't vampires, they would just be regular serial killers. Like, because you have a choice to eat animals. And then, okay, let's say like you just ate criminals until they decided to invent blood banks. But you're rich. So you're rich, you could just buy out a blood bank and own a blood bank, and then take half the blood for your food most of the time. And, that's a vibe. I think that's what Louis did later on anyways, because he never really liked eating people. He was just being, coerced into eating people. And, the thing is, it's like half coercion and half, like, at some point you got to be like, if it really bothers you that much, you got to stop, honey. But you didn't stop, and when you was coerced to a certain extent, I can't give it all to you and be like, oh no, he was abused. And no, because the abuse is not an excuse for murder. I don't care. Anyways, so in the show, he changes this little girl into a vampire. And at first she's like 14 in the show. Like I said, in the book, she's 5. So it hits more deeply in the book because she's 5. You got this little toddler that's this high walking around with a 60-year, because she stayed with them niggas for 60 years with a 60-year-old mind. and she looks like a toddler. Like, she doesn't look like, a little person or something. You can tell those are adults. You can tell the difference. No, she looks like a little curly haired cherub baby in the book. So her being 14 in the show in the early 1900s and shit, I mean, like, niggas was marrying 12-year-olds. So the stretch doesn't stretch as much as it needs to stretch for them to use that as an excuse to kill her. I think that it was mainly her killing Lestat that they used as an excuse, but it's just hard to stretch all the shit she experienced as being seen as a child when niggas was marrying 12-year-olds and shit, and was, just molesting children out in the damn street and shit. Like, they didn't the Children's Working Act didn't come into place until the 1920s and shit. Before then, teenagers were seen as adult. There was no time period. Like, that's what I mean. Like, at the time that she was made into a vampire, 14 years old, there was no period of time where there was a teenager. That word didn't really exist like that. You were an adult at that time. So the stretch didn't stretch, but I get it. Like, you would have to get like some little Gary Coleman type of, disordered person or something that really looked like a little cherub baby, or a little person that really looked like a little cherub baby. Because the emotiveness that we need to see her as an adult, I don't know if a 5-year-old could emote like that. I don't know if a real life 5-year-old could emote like that and not be traumatized by the scenes and the structure of the set. Like, in the 1994 movie, little girl was 10. I could see a 10-year-old. Like, they could have got a 10-year-old. Kristen Dunst did that, bitch. You can't say shit. That little girl did that. She was an actress, bitch. But, like, 14 is stretching it. But I guess because of how they did the Madeline at the end, it wouldn't have looked right with a 10-year-old. You can't escape some of the pedophile stuff. Like, that's what I just had to settle for. You can't, like with Anne Rice, you can't completely, wholly escape the pedophile stuff. You gotta throw it in there somewhere. So, and so anyways, what I was saying. So she's just like this little girl. She 14. She having fun. She drinking people blood and all this other stuff. She doing all this shit. And then a few years pass. She turns 18 in the mind and shit. And she like, I want to have sex. Like, I want to wear grown up clothes and shit. And she's a small 14-year-old with the body of like maybe a 13-year-old, 12-year-old maybe. And so like she looks. And I can't even say she looks like a kid, because you can make her up to look like an adult if you wanted to. Like, she looked like a 16-year-old in some situations. So the way people were treating her like she was 10, I was just like, this isn't the time period where they would have done that. I'm just pretending. It was hard. It was hard to like put her in those situations where they were treating her like she was 10. I was just like, she's 14. Like, she looks 14. Sometimes she looks 16. This isn't the time period. But anyway, she finds this little boyfriend, because she want a boyfriend. He looked about 15 or whatever. And like, she want to turn him into a man. She wanted to have a relationship with him and have like sexual relations and shit with him. And so she attempted, and she a vampire. She killed him and shit. Like, like, my thing is like, I feel like the thirst is too thirsty. Like, once you drink once for the night, like, isn't it? And I might be wrong, but I feel like in the books, like, once they weren't that thirsty. They weren't that thirsty where they needed like 5 niggas a night or some shit like that, is what I'm saying. Like they couldn't interact with people and talk to people and hang out with people and be around humans and just interact with them and shit, after they ate. Like, maybe Louie, because Louie over here eating rats and shit, and it's not enough nutrition for his body. But like, the way they was just killing people off, like, just after talking to them for like, Louie almost killed a baby, but like, Louie, let me shut up. Louie over here not even eating like he's supposed to. But anyways, so she over here like killed this boy, and then she took him to Lestat, and she's like, "Turn him into he's dead, girl. Like he's black people pale dead. Like his skin is blue and shit. Like that's." He can't bring niggas back to life, honey. Like, I mean, in later books, I think he could, but like, not yet. Not yet, girl. So, like, I don't know what he thought she thought he was gonna, but she's like slowly getting angrier and angrier that she has to be in this little kid body and she can't be an actual adult. In the book, it makes more sense because she was 5. So. Now I'm gonna keep bringing it back to that because the optics don't optic for me, and it makes me it throws me off. Like the situation, like even when like the next, like in the episode after she's turned. So she's tired of Lestat. Lestat is being emotionally abusive. He's being trifling. I guess later on, like in the second season, she talks about him putting her in the floor and breaking her arms and shit as punishment, and then leaving her under the floor for like days and shit like punishment and stuff like that, because she was getting tired. She was self-harming with the son and like being upset, hiding body pieces all over their place and shit like some weird ass serial killer. But my thing is like that's what sociopaths are. They're like big ass kids, big ass like evil kids and shit. Kids be doing shit like that are fucked up and shit, that are fucked up and curious. Like when kids have like something like oppositional defiant disorder, that's what we diagnose kids with when they show like antisocial disorder symptoms, but we don't want to diagnose them as a sociopath yet because they have so much time to get to the point where, you know, they may not turn into a sociopath. So we don't want to, that's a heavy diagnosis that would follow them forever. So we say oppositional defiant disorder when they're doing stuff like killing animals and stealing and hurting people and just doing the shit for fun and stuff like that. So like she was showing some oppositional defiant disorder symptoms, and them kids be acting like that. And that's how grown-up sociopaths act. And so they're stuck in that like, but objectification, childlike objectification, basically. Like all children have it to a certain extent, but most children don't have it for like breaking things or like killing animals and shit. Most children, you'll see it more so in them like being extra curious about the television and wanting to touch it and being extra and taking apart their toys and putting them back together and being all curious about shit, and you know, like just very like, you know, sensorial in their body, what I can taste, what I can smell, what I can see, what I can hear, and not really understanding that other people have feelings and emotions too, and you're not the only fucking one and stuff like that. And so, you know, like they're just big ass fucking kids, crazy kids, big ass fucking crazy kids. And so like that's the type of shit she was doing. She was eating people, keeping souvenirs of their body. That's why I said I read Anne Rice like I would a true crime. Like these niggas are crazy. Look at them. They're just having orgies, and there's nothing wrong with an orgy. That's your business. That's not my business. But when you add like the orgy and blood and, you know, and with the dead bodies sprinkled about while they're fucking and then there's babies and children in the orgy, and you're just sitting there like, you want me to get attached to these people? Like it's just fascinating for my mind that loves psychology. I'll just be like, how do you get this depraved? Like what needs to happen? Because I want to avoid that shit, and I want my future children to avoid that shit. So what needs to continuous trauma, and in their case, continual consistent trauma for hundreds of years, to where they never get a chance to actually heal from it for a long ass fucking time. And also normalizing things like touching babies and then acting like it's okay. So that's not something that we need to heal from, and on and on and on. Okay, so make sure that your children aren't continuously traumatized and they're free to grow and be independent in themselves, and you know, you teach them right from wrong and shit like that, and you know, they love themselves and they can be grounded in themselves, so they never feel the need to seek outward validation 100% from other people. Okay, that's how I read this shit. So anyways, She hiding bodies all over the place, and then she like dumping the bodies in the fucking river. And of course, during the rainy season, all the bodies is floating up. It's like 30 some bodies. She killed like 100 some people, and so the police stop at their door because now it's been another fucking 5 or 6, 10 years. I don't know. I'm trying to keep track. It's hard though. I told you, it's convoluted as fuck. And when you add the stuff from the book, it's a lot. And I forgot most of what happened during the 60 years she lived with them before she plotted to kill Lestat. In the show, I think it was like it was only like they made it seem like a couple decades that she lived with them niggas for 60 fucking years. So I forgot most of the shit that happened while she lived with them in the book. So excuse. And then the Wikipedia doesn't go into all of the 60 years that may or may not be in the book. It just like, and she lived with them for 60 years. And then she plotted to kill Lestat because she was tired of being a 5-year-old and she was mad and she wanted to leave. Apparently, I think the scene in the train is in the book. But yeah, so she like is getting more and more upset, and she's tired of Louie because Louie is just over there, this sad sack trying to be all righteous and shit. But we can tell that you're depressed. It's irritating. It's just like you letting this nigga hit on you and call you names and cheat on you and lie to you. And the thing is that, and this is why it's easy for abusers to separate you from the people you love, because the people you love get tired of watching you be hurt to the point where it becomes resentment. Like, you really not gonna leave? Like, you really just gonna have me sit up here watch this nigga hit on you and do all this shit, and you ain't even gonna do it? It turns into disgust because you would never allow that shit for your damn self. And or if you did allow it, you got away from it. And it's hard to maintain empathy over a long, this was like 10, 15 years of watching this nigga deteriorate because this nigga was emotionally abusing him and shit. It's a lot. So you just looking at this nigga like a piece of shit. Like, passive niggas, people pleasers that don't heal and work on themselves can become toxic. They can become the henchmen of their abuser. They can become the person that provides the punishment, the person that stands by and watches you get abused and doesn't do shit about it. They're the person that makes excuses for the abusers. And so you start to hate them too. And in the book, so way down the line in the books, the journals weren't introduced in the first few books. The journals were introduced in this book where they first introduced the Mayfair witches with the vampires. This book called Merrick. And it's about a Mayfair witch who is black, but she's really Creole and she's passing. So I don't even know why I guess people are talking shit about not having a lead black person in the book or something. Well, we had Queen of the Dam. I think Akasha's black, but like, it's just, she dies. And so Merrick dies eventually too in another. I'm tired. But like, everybody else gets to live is what I'm saying. Everyone else gets to live, okay? But anyways, the journal, and I think it was only like one journal, and I don't know if it's Louie wasn't taking pictures of this little girl, because in that book, so let's rewind. The Vampire Diaries is actually set like in the 1800s. So Louie wasn't taking pictures and painting and doing all this random shit like that when he was in Paris. And so in Merrick, when they introduced the journal, Louie wants Merrick to because Claudia is a fucking ghost that follows these books all the way through. She's always hovering in the background, but never quite there. They never quite bring her back. So Louie wants Merrick to bring Claudia back. But he has a journal entry of hers where she plainly states she hates this nigga. She hates, but she loves them. Thin line between love and hate. And she thinks Louie is, a bitch. I'm summarizing. If I find it again, I'll put it. But she thinks Louie is a bitch. And she knows that they need to get away from Lestat in order for her to get out of this house and actually be able to explore the world. Because she wants to get out and explore and do things. And this nigga is not letting her. And she knows that Lestat is not going to allow like is not going to plot with her to kill Louie, because Lestat is the one that's keeping them both there because he doesn't want to be alone, so he's stuck to them like glue, like some borderline narcissist sociopath. And so she plots with Louie because she knows Louie's the weakest one, and she uses Louie against Lestat, and she basically wants to turn Louie into her companion to follow her around and do what she wants and fuck Lestat. And so she hates this nigga. And so he's read this journal entry. He's read it. And yet he still wants to bring her back to life. And they sort of do, but it's like some ghoul thing. And she just standing there just full of rage and hate towards this nigga. And it's just like a whole thing. I was just like, if you're not actually gonna bring, no, because she be bringing bitches back. Like, it's like supernatural, okay? She be bringing motherfuckers. Like, Lestat went to hell, talked to the devil, found out there was a God, came back alive and well. So, if you was gonna, like, why was you talking to the devil, talking about, no, because my thing, I correct me if I'm wrong, because I've read Mem Knock the Devil, or whatever fuck that book's called, but I don't remember it. I read the summary. There was no mention of Claudia in there, but I know that Lestat wrote about Claudia and the vampire Lestat, and said he was sad and he loved her and he felt so bad he killed her and all this other shit. You talking to the devil? Well, you didn't. Whoop. Can you just favors and turn and boop 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 her spirit and make her alive? Can I talk to her for a second? You loved her so much, but when you was talking to the supernatural niggas that's supposed to be in control of the afterlife shit, like, you just, maybe he did, but I would think that if Wikipedia gonna write out a whole summary of that, would be an important, because she's always there. And I just, maybe he tried and there was some reason why they couldn't, like, talk to the dead people for him. I don't, you loved her so much. But anyways, she's just this ghost that just hovers in the background of all 13 of these books. And whatever, girl. So anyways, she hates this nigga. And so, like, in the show, it's like you can feel that she dislikes him. I'll say that. But it's like how you dislike your friend that won't leave that nigga. But you like dislike them and almost more leaning towards the hate side, because you gotta be around that shit too. So like a kid living in like an abusive household that starts to resent their like abused parent because you just standing here and you're not doing nothing, and he broke my arms and put me in the floor for like a month or some shit. Like, you just didn't come get me. Like, you didn't, it's probably some other shit he did to her and shit. Who knows? I just, so like, I get it, but I feel like the level of hatred wasn't there. It wasn't there. The level of hatred that needed to be hated on, it was not there. And so, what was that? She was like, okay, so she was hiding bodies and doing all this random shit, right? And like the cops came, and cause she was like hiding them all fucked up. And so Louie and Lestat got mad at her and shit. And she was tired. She was like, I'm tired of this nigga. Like, you ain't gonna do nothing. You ain't gonna change anything. So she left. She dipped on him for 7 years and hitting colleges and shit like that, and tried to pretend to be a college student. And my thing is, she looked like a college student. Cause no, she was sleeping in the college libraries, and she got caught by one of the students there, this white dude that was racist and shit. And he was like, little girl. And I was like, she looks, I mean, I went to college with short bitches. Like, she was wearing this big Letterman jacket. I was like, she looks like a college student. Okay, we're going to stretch it. And like, while she was there, like, this dude rides up on a motorcycle, right? And he was like, he was a vampire too. And so he took her out into the woods and shit. And she was just like, finally another vampire. Cause she wants to find vampire friends. She wants to find somebody other than these two crazy niggas that she was forced to be made by and to live with. So she's naive in a way because she's a child. So this nigga sexually assaults her. During the course of this, like Louie is talking to the dude that was interviewing him in the 80s or whatever, and he brought him back and whatever the fuck. During the course of the interview, like they reading her journals at this point. He ripped out the pages where she was sexually assaulted. I was like, valid. Why you need that? Why you need a blow by blow description? No, because this ain't Game of Thrones. We about to be raping bitches every other scene and shit. Like, why you need a blow by? I like that. Why you need a blow by blow description of her sexual assault? And the dude was all like, well, you're the integrity of the truth and blah blah blah. And I was like, why? Why do you need that? So I like that. But anyway, so she was sexually assaulted. So, and the reason why she was sexually assaulted is because Louie was because the dude that assaulted her. Let's start off there. But Louie was calling her name and sending out telepathically her name in the wind for like months, and she hadn't heard him, but old dude had heard him, and old dude came after her, and old dude assaulted her. And I don't understand why you love her so much. Well, I mean, at that point, maybe he was even worse than the fake love. That's fake. I don't care. You was with the devil. You could have saw her and said something to her and shit and been like, I'm sorry or something, anything. But maybe he did. Let me shut up. Anyway, so she went back home, and then she tried to be friends with Lestat. Like, she tried. But what happened was they found out he was cheating. And Lestat later on gonna talk about, oh, well, he was all depressed and miserable. But you brought him to that point, honey, with your narcissistic, sociopathic, borderline shit. Like, you brought him to that point. You dragged him there to the point where he was just like, when you snap and you start doing just crazy people shit, like talking to yourself, rocking back and forth, just feeling delirious and manic at the same no, I've been there, like I know. But like he was like that for 7 years and shit. And Lestat talking about in his little monologue, oh, well, like, what was I supposed to do when your partner is like, you try to give them everything and show them everything and blah 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 blah, and then they don't want to, and then they scream vitriol at you, and then they don't want to touch your body, and it would be valid if like he was the aggressor. Retaliation abuse is not abuse. Like, what at that point, what was he supposed to do? You wouldn't leave him the fuck alone. You wouldn't let him be. You took everything away from him that identified him as his own person. What narcissists and sociopaths don't understand is the thing that made you attached to that person is because of the things that make them an individual. Their family, their favorite color, the things they do for self-care, they're traveling. So you have to pour into them and the things that make them an individual in order to maintain whatever the fuck it was that attracted you to them. And if you don't pour into those things, the person is going to become a shell of a thing, and not be the thing that you was attracted to. And that's how people end up dead when the serial killer gets bored with playing with you. Or like, like Jeffrey Dahmer. You attracted to these, like, you want somebody that's going to do everything that you tell them to do. So you want to make them into a mannequin and shit. But whatever attracted you to them to make you want them to be the one to do everything you tell them to do and shit like that, if you take them away from it, they're not gonna have the thing anymore. And that's why you have to keep going from thing to thing instead of like being a normal ass fucking person and pouring into they shit and pouring into them, and then they can pour into you and y'all can pour into each other and maintain and flourish and grow the things that attracted you to each other. But no one's no one's trying to do that. So anyways, so he's like, and so I cheated, and this white bitch they hired one night, and he been fucking her since they hired her at the little brothel and shit. But like, the brothel burned down, honey, and he didn't get that depressed for 7 years. Like, she didn't run away until after the brothel burned down. And so like, that shit ain't had nothing to do with you cheating. You was just cheating to cheat because like you was a nasty nigga and you don't care about other people's feelings or how they are affected by your actions and shit like that. That involves pouring into those things that made you like what they like that made you like what you like about them. and you not doing that by maintaining the loyalty that you promised in the beginning. So why would they maintain the glow that they had in the that doesn't make sense, honey bunch oats. um and so like he been cheating with this bitch, they find out, and all that shit that he was talking about, like about like let's be friends and let's figure this out and let's be a family, goes out the fucking window. They get into this big ass abusive ass brawl where they both fighting each other, and then Lestat, of course, he's more powerful. So I was just like, I know fledglings are strong in the beginning. I think that's how Anne Rice vampires work, but like he wasn't a fledgling no more, so like Lestat should be stronger. He got Akasha blood, and my thing is, if he got Akasha blood, then them two niggas got Akasha blood. So like, why couldn't they do certain things that I would expect them to do? Why couldn't they have similar powers to Lestat? Like, I just, okay, whatever, girl. Anyways, and so like he flies up in the sky, and this nigga didn't know that he could fly up in the sky. I guess the night that they was fucking the first time, he didn't notice that they was floating off the floor or whatever the fuck. But you know, he flies this nigga into the sky. I think that was a trick to make, you know how when you kiss somebody and like if you really like them, and he's like, I felt like I was floating, blah 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 blah. I think that was a mind trick, nigga. So that nigga was actually floating, but in his mind it was like, that ain't real, but it like feels so real. Oh my gosh, he's the one, nigga. Oh, the diabolicalness. Oh, the Lord, keep me safe from these niggas that would crush my soul. In the name of Jesus, amen. Anyways, he flies this nigga up into the sky and then drops this motherfucker, and he just crashes down. And then he was like broken for months. And, you know, he's a vampire, so like he's not gonna die from shit like that, but he was like, his bones and shit had to mend back together, and his organs had to mend back together from the internal bleeding. And so he was like that for fucking months and shit. And whatchamacallit had to help him and shit. What's her name, Claudia and shit, she had to help him, and she was just getting madder and madder seeing this nigga all broke up and shit. And so what she did was like, she started plotting, and once he started getting healed and shit, she basically was like, yeah, no, we gonna kill this nigga. And she was, see, this is how you know she didn't like this nigga. Like, I know, coupled with all the other things that show that she doesn't like this nigga like that, she was like, I'm not gonna tell you the plan, just get close to him, just fall in love with him, just don't act like nothing. But unbeknownst to them, he had been having the white bitch follow them around and shit. Because, okay, so what happened was, I forgot a part. So what happened was he broke his body, and then he kicked the nigga out the house, and like he was gone. Like, he was broken up with this motherfucker. This nigga, over months at a time, love bombed this nigga, and he was already weak in the body, weak in the mind, until one day he sends him a song with his bitch singing in the background. And he puts, this is a song I wrote for you, and I just want to show you how much I love you, and da with his bitch in the background. And this is what causes this nigga to go to this man's house and get back with him. And I just, you weak motherfucker, he had to basically love bomb you and traumatize you at the same time just for you to crack. He had to combine the two. I hate you. You was done with this nigga. It would have been fine. Like, you and Claudia would have lived in New Orleans and had your life and been happy and minded your business and all the magical things. Or this nigga just would have got tired of the silent treatment and raped you or some weird shit, because that's Anne Rice and shit. And they really trying to get her vibe. They really trying to get her freak. They trying to match her freak in this motherfucker. The tone, like when you watch this shit, I felt depressed. Like, I had to watch this in shifts. I didn't binge this in a whole day. Like, I had to take a 2-day break between. It was just like a lot. Like, Louie is just so, and then Lestat is just over here pushing him and just pouring more depression juice into just like, and it's the devil. So anyways, people ain't gonna get this video unless they read the books. Oh well, I don't care. I tried to explain it as logically as possible, so it made sense. So anyways, this nigga folds, and so Claudia starts plotting. She's like, "No, fuck this. This nigga always gonna break. We were free. We were free and shit." And so she brings her back into their. He brings him back into her life. And no, she doesn't start plotting. What she does is she tries one more time to leave. She's like, "I'm tired, okay?" And she thought because she left last time, and they left her the fuck alone and whatever. And I think in the book she left too, and he came on the train and got her. She left last time, so she ain't thinking that it ain't no thing but a chicken wing, nigga. Like, and so she stowed away on this train, right? She was like, she was gonna go to Europe. She was gonna find her vampire people. She was gonna do her thing and live. And this nigga dragged her off that train so fast, and he was all like, "Last time you left, Louie was super depressed, and so you can't leave now and shit." You motherfucking borderline nigga. If you don't see, no, they just be messing shit up. Like, them sociopathic, narcissistic, borderline motherfuckers, they just be fucking shit up and just causing all this chaos. Like, none of the shit at the end would happen if he hadn't done that shit. Like, if he had just let her go, like, let her know that she could have freedom in the world and shit. But because you are so fucking clingy and everything is such an object to you, you had to come and ruin shit all the fucking time. And I guess he gets better in the other books, and he's not so clingy and claustrophobic and weird and shit. But like, this is like hundreds of years worth of this type of behavior, and so I don't have no sympathy for this shit. Like, I don't care. I don't give a fuck, nigga. You can suck a dick hoe. Like, all that shit you did, like, it's not gonna go away from me. Like, I can't unsee what I saw. So, sometimes people develop phobias against other people, and you can't do nothing about it, and you have to stay the fuck away from them people. And if them people are truly healed, they will stay the fuck away from you because they recognize your individuality and your individual emotional setup, and they respect it, and they respect you, and they stay the fuck away from you. But if they're not healed, they're going to chase you down to the ends of the earth and damn near murder you, if not murder you, because they can't let go of the idea that you belong to them and they're crazy. So I can't let it go. I know it's horrible. So that's just that's for me. That I'm gonna keep it in here. So after he takes her off that train, that's when she start plotting. She's just like, "No, nigga, fuck this." And so she plotting, and she tell Louie, "Oh, you just get close to him. I'm not gonna, cause you're weak and shit, nigga. Like, he may not be able to reach your mind, cause your maker can't reach your mind and shit. But like, he can feel your body language and your heartbeat and all your soul and all this stupid shit." So she plotting, but lo and behold, the white bitch he been cheating with the whole time, been reading their mind in the background and shit. But this bitch smart as fuck. She said when they was playing chess one day that you gotta be 5 steps ahead of this nigga. And so she knew that he had that white bitch listening to them. So they had this big Mardi Gras ball, right? And like, they had everybody there, and so she picked a few people in the crowd to join them after the ball. And they said that they told Lestat this is gonna be our going away celebration, because Lestat was like scared because they had kept putting like voodoo shit on the doorstep and stuff like that. And what does it mean when somebody in New Orleans leaves a Bible? Because I may have gotten inebriated one time in New Orleans too much and fell asleep on a bench at nighttime. In that square where the church is. And then when I woke up like an hour later and shit, like, there was like an old dusty Bible next to me, and I just thought somebody was blessing me. And I just want to know, like, was I being blessed? I didn't touch it because it was like dirty. It looked like it had like fluids and shit dried on it. I wasn't gonna touch it, but God bless, but like, was I being blessed? Because they put Bibles and shit in the front of these niggas' house and like voodoo dolls with it, and I'm just like, is that a curse? Is the Bible, you put the Bible next to somebody, I believe in Jesus. Jesus is not gonna allow the witchcraft and the curses to infiltrate me, but like, let me know. Like, does anybody I tried to Google it and it just gave me a bunch of stuff about Bibles in Louisiana Creole, and I was like, no, that's not what I it has to mean, I want to know what it means because it wasn't there when I went to sleep. No, it wasn't. I should have took a picture of it. Fuck. I just got up and left. I was spooked. I was just like, well, look, you're in New Orleans. You're in that square with the church. It's, it's a lot. It's nighttime. I hope I wasn't cursed. Anyways, where are we? So, like, what are we talking about? So she plotting and planning, right? And she come up with this ball, and during the ball, they pick like 5 or 6 people that they are going to come to the after party, so that Lestat could have a little snacky snack and shit like that. And so before they leave and shit, because he's scared of all the voodoo dolls and shit. Maybe that shit do work. Look at him, he's got scared. It wards off the evil and shit. He got scared and shit. He left that motherfucker. So, and I think because somebody came to his house and they was trying to like they wanted to live forever too, and they killed this nigga and shit. And like, so people were finding out that they were just young for a long time. So like, they got the 5 or 6 niggas, right? But she had laced a couple of them with laudanum and like all this other poison in their blood and shit. And so like, he goes and he drinks all of them, and they all chasing him down in the house and shit. And it's these 2 twin boys. So in the book, it was like these 2 homeless boys that were like actual children, like 10, because they do nasty things in the book. So to children, and so be careful. And so like, there's these twins, right? And they gonna use them. They were gonna use them as the trick. They were the decoy for the real nigga that he actually drunk from. And so the white bitch walk in the house, and she's like, "Oh, I read your minds." And like, they're like, what are they? Oh, and Claudia's like, I know already, but he already drank the laudanum, bitch. So then Louie goes and gets her and sets her ass on fire, and then Claudia cuts this nigga's throat, and Lestat like dies, but he's not really dead because Louie just put him in a trash bag and put him in a dump, and so he was in his coffin too. So Claudia knew that nigga wasn't dead. Louie knew that nigga wasn't dead. They knew that nigga wasn't dead, and retribution was gonna come eventually. That nigga was in his coffin. He had a cautious blood in him. They didn't know that at the time, but they knew he was strong. Whatever, girl. In the book, they drug him, and then they moved to like the outer edges of Louisiana or of New Orleans, and then they're gonna go to Europe. But they have like another apartment that they're waiting in before they go to Europe. And so Lestat doesn't die though from his throat being cut, and he wakes up and he goes to their little apartment and he sets that shit on fire. Louis sets that shit on fire, and then they go to Europe. So they had to like kill him twice and shit, but he didn't die because he has Akasha's blood. So that is like, and then they go to Europe, right? That is like the end of season 1. But come to find out, like, the reporter is like calling out Louie this whole time because Louie is remembering things, and then like he's also maybe lying about some shit. It's weird the way he acts it. It's almost like in some situation it looks like he's lying on purpose. In some situations it looks like he's like slowly remembering it. And so like with the story with Lestat dying, like he tried to play it off like, oh no, I killed him and and whatchamacallit, what's her name, Claudia, she was happy and we left. And then like the reporter is not stupid. He thought what I thought, like, oh well, he's in the car. You knew he wasn't gonna die, nigga. Claudia was pissed off at you. Like she even wrote in her book some like, I hate vampires, or fuck these vampires, or some shit like that. And so like he's like remembering it, and then he remembers that Claudia was mad at him because he didn't want to burn Lestat, and he didn't want to burn Lestat, so, and he just wanted to dump him in the dump, and she knew that nigga wasn't gonna be dead, and she was mad at him because she was basically sabotaging him because them motherfucking people pleasers, them toxic people pleasers, they are the henchmen of these motherfuckers, and they will self-sabotaged themselves to death. You got me fucked up. You knew that nigga was alive. And so the nigga calls me and he's all like, I didn't remember and thank you and blah blah blah. So they're trying to do like some EMDR memory, pulling up the memory type shit. And that's like the end of season 1. Whoo, shit. See if we can do season 2. So season 2, Claudia this whole season has been wanting to like be this, like, she wants to like find other vampires. She tired of these niggas. She wants to be independent. Like, she a little sociopath and shit too, but like she wants to be her own person. She's not like codependent with these niggas. Like, these niggas are codependent on each other. They like, but whoever Lestat is with, he is codependent with for a long time. Like, people, someone try to say these are like, they got like a polyamory thing going on, but I don't even, like, you don't fall in love with every nigga you meet after meeting them for like a week and shit, nigga. Like, every single one, you love them. You only knew this nigga for a day. Like, he knew Louie for like a day, and then the next day fucked him, and then a week later, after not hearing from this nigga, turned him into a vampire, and then a day later was like, I love you. I just be looking at this nigga like, really, nigga? So like, in the book, like, they're like, so like, Claudia's like healthier in that way. She's not codependent. She's not clingy like that. She's her own person. She has maintained her individuality because she never like was a people pleaser. She's assertive. She does what she wants to do. Like, I feel like Louie in this sense has always felt less than. He's always felt like he has to go above and beyond to be seen. Could be in black in Louisiana. And so he was already set up to be a fucking people pleaser and to be a toxic people pleaser because he was already doing nefarious shit anyways. So it's not that hard hop skip jump into, that was the gateway drug. This is the hardcore. So like, she's just disgusted with this motherfucker. And like, they're in Eastern Europe now. So she's in Eastern Europe. She's trying to find other vampires, and she's trying to find the old vampires. And Lestat warned her that these niggas are dangerous. And I wish she had listened, but I feel like she still has the mindset of a child. Like, she's like, even though she's an adult, she's assertive, things like that, she still got the mindset of a child. Like, there's some things that you just don't do. I think she grew up out of it over time as she like did the little theater thing, but like, no. Anyways, they're in Eastern Europe. They find these zombie fucking vampires and shit. So that ain't it. So then they decide to go to Paris, right? And they just doing their own thing in Paris. Like, Louis doing photography. He's finding himself. He's figuring himself out. And, growing in himself and all this other shit. And like, whatchamacallit, Claudia is like, she's trying to figure herself out too. But she's not really attached to anything yet. She really wants to find other vampires. She wants other people in her life that are like her, and maybe she can find a boy that she could be with and shit like that, or whatever the fuck she want to do. And so like, what happened in the book, like, when they meet the theater vampires, she wasn't excited. Claudia was off that shit. She was like, these motherfuckers are torturing people and murdering motherfuckers. Like, no, like, it was Louie that was into that shit. He was into Armand. He was fascinated by that nigga. And so in the book, it was reversed. In the show, they did something interesting. They like made Louie just kind of off the theater, but he slowly started to get attached over time. So it wasn't like this sudden, and that makes sense. It's not this sudden like, oh, I'm excited about this, blah, blah, blah. And then like, they made Claudia excited about the theater in the beginning, even though in the book she wasn't, and she hated that shit and she thought it was gruesome and gross. And then over time, she started to see these people for who they really were, and she was like, "Oh no!" She was off that shit. She was like, "Oh no," because they basically had her dressing up like some like cartoonish niggerish child. What? I don't think she dressed up in the book. Though. I don't think she acted in the theater in the book. I don't know. I don't think so. She had her dress up as this niggerish child doing this stupid ass song and dance and shit. And basically, she did it for like 100 some days or some shit, or 500 shows or some shit. I don't know. Until she got tired and she was over it. She was fucking up the show. But by that time, they was drawing people in and shit like that. And this spot, okay, so this is like the big reveal in the season. Like at the end of season 1. So the reporter's been at this house, right, with whatchamacallit? What's his name? This is lasting too long. I'm getting too fucked up. What's his name? Louie is interviewing him, right? And like there's been this like butler that's been walking around the house. This is like Middle Eastern looking nigga. His name is Rashid. And like he's been helping out and doing carrying shit. Come to find out Rashid is a vampire. And it's the vampire Armand. And Armand was the leader of the whatchamacallit? Of the theater group vampires in Paris. And what happened was Lestat used to act in the theater group vampires. He started the theater with his first love, Nikki. In the book, he left because there was this whole scene where Armand was like running this cult. That's how he started off in Paris. He was running this cult from Rome after Lestat killed Magnus, his creator. And so he had to come run the cult where they were all they were like really like into the devil and they were ashamed of their vampirism and they was like killing sparingly and then this weird ass coven and shit like that. Marius, the nigga that made Armand, also like was a child molester and shit. And so he was molested by that nigga. And then before that, Marius had bought him from a brothel in the Middle Eastern countries and shit. And so he bought him from a brothel and he was getting molested in there. It was like a whole thing of just, Anne Rice shit. And so he's like super duper traumatized, right? So he's got all this shit fucked up going on before when he was immortal, and he's like an ancient. So he's like looks like he's like early 20s and shit, but he's like an ancient fucking vampire, right? And so like he basically he is running this theater, and he's running wait a minute, where was I going with this? He's running the theater Lestat finds him in the cult, right? And he's just like freshly turned vampire. He's looking at his cult. No, he doesn't. He finds Lestat. Lestat had came to Paris. He's this freshly turned vampire. He's just like chilling, like being out in the world and all this other stuff. And Armand has these rules for vampires, so like they can't be out amongst humans like that, mingling with them niggas. They can't show that they're a vampire in front of niggas, but he was doing that on stage. Like Lestat was acting and shit like that. So in the book, Armand was trying to like get Lestat into the cult because like he got some kind of like sociopathic borderline narcissism shit going on. And so like he's trying to get Lestat into the cult by any means necessary. He's trying to own this nigga. And so what happened in the show is Lestat shows up at the club, at the cult, and he like disproves all their shit, like look, I can touch the cross and blah blah blah, you can be free in the world and In the show, Armand acts like he wanted Lestat to do that shit. Like, oh no, I wanted you to do this because I couldn't do it because I was bored and shit and I didn't want to be in this cult anyways, but I knew that they wasn't going to listen to me and blah, 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 blah. And like, in the show, in the book though, no, that nigga was mad. That nigga was like, that was one of the reasons I'll get to it. But like that nigga was mad. That nigga was fucking mad. And he kept stalking Lestat. So basically he did a Lestat on Lestat. He was stalking him, trying to control him, trying to mind control him, trying to like kill. He wanted to join him and his little boyfriend and his mom and shit like that. Cause he had turned his mom, because his mom had like some kind of consumption or some shit and was about to die and shit. So Lestat turned her into a vampire. So in the book, like, Armand is like horrible. This is like the vampire Lestat. This is the second book where he describes his shit. Armand is like fucking horrible. He's horribly evil. So like at the end of the first season, he reveals himself as Rashid, the butler that's been walking around, and like people online were just like, what's gonna happen, because like he's horrible, like, because he was like this is the vampire Armand, the love of my life. That's how he introduced himself and shit. Like that's how Louie introduced him, and everybody was just like, what are you talking about? This thing is crazy. So come to Paris, that's how they first meet. He is the leader of this troupe of vampires in this theater, because Lestat left him and his old boyfriend the theater. His old boyfriend went mad. I feel like if you're around a bunch of narcissists, borderline sociopaths, you're gonna go mad. I mean, it sounds like what happened to Nikki and Louise is not an isolated Nikki and Louie is not an isolated incident. They both went, insane being around these two niggas, and they both have suicidal tendencies. Nikki just completed it, and so I feel like the common denominator is Lestat and Armand. So when you see niggas like that and how people respond to them, and they respond to these people in like toxic fucking ways like that, like, you probably want to stay away from those people. You probably shouldn't be intrigued by those people, because they will only bring destruction and chaos into your life. But whatever, girl. So they at this theater. Claudia is excited. Oh my gosh, they kill people so magnificently, and then like Louis just looking around all suspicious and shit, because he coming off of trauma and war and all sorts of weird shit. And then they was drinking war people blood, and so they was just drinking sadness and despair, because you could feel people's emotions through their blood or some shit. And Claudia look up at a picture on the wall, and she's like, who is that? Oh my gosh. After they like introduce themselves, and like they're like, oh, that's our beloved founder Lestat. Like the thing is about these characters is that they can do the most horrible shit to each other, but still, because of codependency, they like will still, like, Armand hates that nigga, like. So it's like they live forever. So they're just like spatting back and forth forever. Like, and then sometimes they'll love on each other and spat. And that sounds chaotic and exhausting. And I just don't want to live a life like that. I just get your shit together. Like, that's not love. That's codependency, because you feel like you have to. This is the only way that you can find love. So we have to deal with these extreme, toxic, abusive behaviors. And I'm not doing, girl. No, because stress causes inflammation in the body, and inflammation causes cancer. And so you're trying to kill me. That's what you're trying to kill me. And that's what, because you don't want to work on yourself, and then I have to deal with you're trying to kill me, and I'm not going to do that. So, it gets exhausting over time, because it's like you feel like they should be healthy enough to cut somebody off and never talk to them again when they do shit like kill a child, a vampire lady and shit. But like, no. Like, no, like after a couple hundred years, I've stewed over it. I've thought about it, and we can have lunch together. We can both find a bitch to drink off of and shit. Like we can slowly rebuild this situation and everything. It's fine until they do some new shit, like. Because they have a pattern, so eventually they're gonna do some shit. Is this like thrill seeking? Is that what we're experiencing? Because we're so bored, living hundreds of years, that we get our thrills and kicks out of like toxic things, and so we have to thrill seek and create some kind of self-sabotage. That's trauma. That's so trauma. That is so trauma. I don't want it. I don't want the traumas. So anyways, They find out that Armand know Lestat, and so they gotta make up a maker because these niggas is nosy, asking all sorts of fucking questions because they want them to be a part of the cult. At this point, I'm just gonna call it a cult because you can't have friends. You have to do what the leader says, and if you don't do what the leader says, he physically or sexually abuse you or some shit, or both, or emotionally abuse you, and you have to like not be yourself at all. Like that's not. It's a cult. Like. That's what it is. Like, I don't know what you want me to. I'm not calling it a coven. Covens aren't like that. Like witch covens, like they have independence and they can do what they want to do. That's just their friends that they hang out with in front of a boiling pot of some shit in the middle of the woods at night with some candles and shit and a full moon, like occasionally, and maybe talk some shit and drink some beer and do some shit. Like I don't know, like, and then go home and do regular shit like that people do, like. That's not a coven. That's a cult. Like, you're describing something completely different. So I hated that they called themselves a coven. I was just like, whatever, nigga. So basically, Armand needs people around him. He needs to have. He's just an emotional vampire, and he needs to figure out any type of way to get these people around him, right? And so basically. They join, but the thing is that like the coven is mad because Claudia wants to join, but whatchamacallit, Louie doesn't. Louie is just, he's trying to find himself. He's trying to heal, and this toxic, dirty motherfucker Armand comes along to disrupt it. Imagine if he never came along. Imagine who Louie would have been if he hadn't experienced all the shit he had to experience just because he associated with this nigga. I mean, I guess they probably would have, if Claudia wanted to be in a little club play or whatever, but like, if they were just never there, it would be so much healthier, probably. He would have been so much healthier. But anyways, like, Armand got his clutches into this nigga and love. He just gives him the whole romantical experience, but there's this undercurrent of, why don't you join us? You should join us. You should be a part of our. He just has this God complex, like, but it's this passive, abusive nature where he will do underhanded things quietly behind your back, and then you'll just find out about it later, and it's horrible, evil way, and you just be like sitting there and this nigga is plotting on you the whole entire time and you would not even know it. Like, if we're gonna pick abusers, then let's go with Lestat. Like, at least you know what's coming up and you could have the potentiality to like avoid it. Like, he's just over here cheating, lying, emotionally abusing, and as long as you don't get too far on his bad side, he won't put his hands on you. I don't see the problem. And he give you good dick, like on top of everything else. Like, you got this nigga over here, you don't know what's gonna happen next. You're just gonna be blindsided, and next thing you know, the daughter you raised, that you forced into being, is being burned to a crisp with her little girlfriend and shit. And I don't like it. Ooh. It's so horrible. I'm sure. I hate it so much. That is horrifying. That's like a monster hiding, waiting to just destroy you, right? So anyways, Claudia, maybe she was, because I think I read in one Reddit that in the book Claudia did join the little play. So maybe it was drawn out. Maybe that is how it was in the book. Y'all let me know. Cause I think I read it. Like Claudia was doing on the stage, doing a little acting and shit. So I don't know. Y'all tell me. So anyways, Claudia's just loving, like, she loves doing she doesn't love doing the acting at first. They put her in some little mammy outfit, and I was just like, the optics of this are just off, and like they made these little blue eyeshadow things on her eyes, and I just hated it. I fucking hated it. I was like, what kind of mammy bullshit? And so like they're in Paris, right? And like She's trying to find herself. Like Claudia's trying to find her fucking self, and then Armand's trying to slowly wrap Louie in his web. And it's not that hard because Louie just easily trapped by these niggas. Like you should be able to see this nigga a mile off. Like Claudia isn't really paying. Like I think she can see it, but she not paying attention to what this nigga's doing because this nigga is just like in the book. Claudia's mad when he finds Armand. So they do go to Eastern Europe and all that stuff. But she's mad when he finds Armand because she's scared he's gonna leave her alone because she's in a little 5-year-old body. So she finds this little doll maker because that's what it was. They said the doll maker came and watched her play in the theater, just like the dress lady came and watched the show Claudia play in the theater. And so she finds this little doll maker, and I guess they grow a bond, and she wants Louie to change her into a vampire so that she could have like a companion. Cause Louie going off with Armand, she like, no, I'm 5. I'm a little teacup, bitch. Like, fuck you think gonna happen to me out here as a 5-year-old vampire? I can't open a bank account, nigga. I can't do things and so in the show she's like getting close to this dressmaker that like she had her make her a dress that looks more grown up and stuff, and then she keeps going to her shop and stuff, and the dressmaker, like she invites the dressmaker to the show and the dressmaker comes to the show, right? And she's just like infatuated with the bitch. And I'm just like, I guess she has like, at first I didn't think they was going to make them get together like as a couple. I thought it was just going to be like, they're going to be like sisters because she's 14 and, but I had to be like, no, because her mind is 70 or some shit. Like, fuck. We had to stretch. Because I don't even know if in the book, was she touching on this baby in the book too? No, because it's Anne Rice. And I just, she was 5. She had a 5-year-old. What's attractive about... It's so hard to slog. It's so dense. It's just slogging through mud and shit. And while they having a little, like, get to know each other and shit, Armand and, like, Louie over here having debates in jazz clubs and shit. Louie taking pictures. He tried to show his pictures off to people and shit, and they don't want him and shit because they say he's an amateur or whatever the fuck. And then during the course of this, like, they stop and skirt the record and shit. They stop the record and, like, they go back to the interviewer. And Louis showing him his pictures that he took when he was in Paris. And, like, the nigga he with had thrown in some pictures from some other photographers and shit in that shit trying to make it look like it was his. And I was just like, you's a cold motherfucker. No, after seeing the whole show, because when I first saw that, I was just like, maybe it was an accident. See how these niggas be crawling into your mind and shit, even from a show. It's insidious. It's like evil. And so, like, he threw some shit in there to try to make his shit look better. He didn't want this nigga to think his shit was ugly. And Louis was just like, wait a minute, how'd this get in here? What's going on? And I was just like, you fucked up motherfucking nigga. You know, like, just be honest if you think the nigga shit is ugly. What's going on? Like... So Louis doing his photography, he's getting mad, and then he gets scared because Armand had read their minds in the beginning and knew that they killed Lestat. And Louis is just like, we and then Armand just gets it out of him. Because in the beginning, Louis was the one trying to keep Claudia from telling that they killed Lestat, and Lestat's their maker. And then this nigga is the one that snitched on his own damn self because you self-sabotaging motherfucker just ruining it for... You can't be around these niggas. They do shit like that. They do shit like that to get you killed because they weak. And until they can get healed, these niggas are weak. That's what it is. And strength doesn't mean that you are on the opposite end and you're controlling and aggressive. Strength means being able to say no and set a firm boundary and not can keep your motherfucking mouth shut when it needs to be shut. That's what it means. And not give a fuck what the other person think. Fuck you, nigga. I'm telling you, that's not your business. To be able to shut your mind off like Claudia did. I don't know if Armand is an ancient vampire, so he probably still would have been able to, probably still broke through Claudia's mind, but at least she tried. Like, you barely trying. You just over here, and then he's seeing Lestat He's having visions. I think he's schizophrenic or some shit like his brother. That makes sense. Like he's seeing that nigga and that nigga's not even there. The nigga hasn't came yet to Paris. He comes eventually, but he hasn't came yet. And so he's seeing him and he's not even there. And like he's talking to him, and then at some point in their relationship, because Armand at least wants to make him a companion, because there's rumblings amongst the cult. I'm not calling it a coven, it's not a coven. There's rumbling amongst the cult about, oh, why does Armand let him do what he wants? Why does Armand like not let us do what we want? And fuck this nigga. Why does he get the special treatment? Why can't he be in the cult? Why doesn't he have curfew and da 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 da? And then like Armand's low key trying to still pull this nigga in though the whole time. So like this whole time this nigga's like throwing him off. Louie's throwing him off. Like, I don't want to be your companion. I don't want to no. And I just feel like when they say playing hard to get, I feel like they should put this nigga's character next to the word, like, cause that's what it looked like and shit. Like, no, nigga. And you only doing that because you traumatized, and this nigga is playing on that shit, and you are passively accepting it. You think you being hard, like this nigga think he being hard. He trying to be hard like Lestat and shit. Like so basically when they finally do get together, he like makes Lestat disappear in the rain in his mind and shit, and then he ends up like trying to act all dominant and like. And then Armand plays into it and try to act all submissive and shit. But Armand's not a submissive. He's a pretend. He's a pretend while he's behind your back. Destroying your world brick by brick by brick. And you don't even know it, nigga. At least with Lestat, you can see that shit coming. Like, he knew that nigga was cheating on him. He knew. Like, he told him he knew. Like, he knew. He was just, like, you know, lying to himself, pretending. He was pretending because it felt good, you know, to pretend. I don't fucking know. So I just like, this nigga told on himself. He told on himself. He told this nigga about Lestat, and then when he made Lestat disappear in his brain, he finally agreed to be this nigga's companion, and like he tried to be all hard with it, like he was dominant and the nigga was submissive, and I was just like, this is not this girl. Are you? So that was his way of like being like all fucked up to this nigga, and this nigga wanted to be with him, so he was gonna do whatever it took to be with him, even fucked up shit behind his back. And so anyways, Claudia over here, like, so I think her name is Madeline, the woman, the dress lady. So she like fucked some Nazi nigga that was hiding in her shop, and the town found out. So she's like the town pariah, right? So they do fucked up shit to her, like put swastikas on her window and shit. I don't even know how she still gets business, how she's still open. Maybe she got a trust fund or some shit. White people be having trust funds and they just be having businesses that don't be patroned, and they just be sitting there, and you just, are we playing pretend? I'm just curious. Are we playing pretend? Okay. And so like we could be doing so many other things with our money. There's a whole world to see. It's so exciting. You could lay on any beach you want. Like if I was a vampire and I had my vampire nigga, we would just be going places and looking at shit, you know. But like I like food, so I can't just not be eating food and shit. Like I'm not drinking people's blood. Maybe Blade. If I was Blade, he ages though. He doesn't have the immortality. You know what? Fuck it. I don't want to be no fucking vampire shit, nigga. I want to be Legion. That nigga from the X-Men, that show. He got all the powers, but without like the mental health issues. Like swipe that shit off and just give me all the powers and shit. He's amazing. He's just magical. I'm gonna rewatch that show. That was a good show. Anyways. He's gonna do anything to keep this nigga, right? So Claudia's over here trying to like make best friends with this lady and shit, right? And so one night the lady ends up getting burgled by these people that hate her because she's like, fuck that Nazi nigga, and she like throws some shit through the window at them and breaks the window when they draw a swastika on her shit. and like they come through the window and they about to rape this bitch, and so Claudia come in and kill every last one of them, and then the bitch see that she's a vampire, and she's like, let me clean it up because I can do it quick and then we can talk, girl. And so she cleans it up and does it quick, and then they talked, and she done found her little girlfriend and shit. I don't know if she's not that much older than her. Maybe she's 20 and they're trying to say it's okay because like she has the mind of a 70-year-old, and the actress is probably over 18, but like if you keep it at 100, like the bitch 14, and like I don't know, I don't like it. It just the optics. I mean, she didn't look like, she looked like she could be like more mature in the face because they changed the actress and shit, but like no, she was like childish and shit. I didn't like it. And then like, so they begging Louie to change this bitch into a vampire because she's like, I want to be with Claudia. And Claudia found somebody that was a healthy for the show and the book, that she just wanted like a mommy or some shit. I don't know. I don't, because it's Anne Rice. She probably little 5-year-old body. Like, what's attractive about that? But you know, in the show. She found her somebody, and they weren't codependent or weird or whatever. I mean, maybe it is kind of codependent to like, I mean, but she didn't know she was gonna die. Like, she didn't know they was gonna kill her and shit. She just wanted to be a vampire. But it's like, to kill other people, like for the sake of loving somebody else, who am I to take somebody else's life? I don't know their trajectory. You don't know what's gonna happen with them. Like, who am I to just take that from them? You know what I mean? Like, I could have just fucked up the whole timeline of the world by just killing somebody. Like, this shit's gonna explode now because, and then everybody's gonna be dead. Like, you don't understand the butterfly effect. Like, what's going? Because you just killed somebody and shit. Like, so you killing like thousands of people all the time because you need to drink blood. Like, I just couldn't do it. But like, this bitch loved her so much. She would want to be with her for eternity and kill niggas. And so she begged Louie, and Louie was like, but then Louie was like he was going to do it, but then like, they're like, no, I don't want Lestat's blood. I want more Armando's and Armand. And then Armand was like, he went in there and talked to the bitch, and she was all cold with it. She was like, I would be with Claudia forever, and I would love her forever, and blah, 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 blah. And Armand was disgusted. He didn't want to do it. And so Louie did it. And then like Claudia helped drain her. And then there was this little couple. They was cute. Like, Claudia's skin was glowing. She was happy. You know, it was magical for them. You know, a little swirl. And then they left town. Like, she left the acting troupe because she was tired of being mammied and shit. Like, no, she's like a little mammy doll. Don't do that. You know what the fuck you was doing. That's probably a part of why she didn't like it too. They infantilized her and they mummified her, and it was not okay. So she leaves, right? And like, so in the book, Lestat is still burned from the second attempt at murder when we was in the house and they burnt him and shit, right? This is in the book. And so he goes across the ocean because he knows he needs ancient blood in order. I don't know. He's still walking and moving with the burns and stuff. He needs the ancient blood to heal faster. And he knows Armand has the ancient people blood. And so he goes to Armand, and Armand's still mad at him about all the situation with the cold and all this other shit. And so he says he can only give him the blood if they kill like Claudia or some shit like that. So Armand was from jump. So he held it over Lestat's head, like, but Lestat still didn't have to do it. Like, Lestat didn't even end up getting the blood, and he went back overseas and buried himself for 10 years and slept because he's a piece of shit. And so if he accused Claudia and Louie, and then he said he would let him have Claudia and Madeline if he could keep Louie. Lestat wanted to keep Louie, right? But Armand wanted Louie. And so like, he lied to Lestat and said, oh no, I'm gonna like give you Louie if you give me Claudia and shit because she broke the rules and da da blah blah blah. But really, they just wanted to get rid of Claudia because she was the voice of sanity. I mean, a little tad bit saner. By this time, she wasn't keeping body souvenirs and shit like that, I would assume. And she wasn't killing indiscriminately and willy nilly and making messes and shit like that. She was a little bit more, you know, in the show, anyways. Like, she was had a 5-year-old body in the book, whatever. And so like he's like, I'll give you Madeline and Claudia and shit like that. And so in the book, he's like, fine, you can have Louie and I'll take but really they just wanted Louie. Both of them niggas wanted Louie. Louie was the one because he was the ultimate nigga to abuse and keep around forever and would never leave them if he got attached to one of them. And they knew that as long as they maintained a routine of abuse and pretend and love bombing and shit like that, he would never leave none of them niggas. And that's what they wanted. They wanted a permanent robot mannequin. Both them niggas did. A permanent robot mannequin that would never leave them and they would fulfill that hole of loneliness. Someone that they could always keep just by abusing. And that's what abusers do. And so, like, in the book, Armand says that he'll give him Louie and shit. But in reality, he kills Claudia and Madeline. And then the crew try to put Louie in like a coffin. So that happened. He put him in a coffin and with the sand and stuff. But Armand freed him in the book. And then he kicked Lestat out of a window and injured him even more. And Lestat somehow got his way back to America and buried himself underneath the dirt and slept for like 10 years or some shit to heal and shit. And that he could have just did that in the first place. He could have did that in the first place instead of testify against his own child when they had the little trial and shit. But anyways, in the show, what happens is at least Claudia and Madeline had a little time together to have like a semi-loving relationship and not be, around these codependent weird niggas and shit. But when they come back to visit Louie in Paris, right? Because they had left, they came back to visit him. And Armand basically orchestrated to have them kidnapped and murdered. All of them. They were all kidnapped. And Armand orchestrated to have Louie like for himself and shit like that. And so basically what happens is they kidnap all of them. They put them on trial and frame it as a play. And like they're sitting on stage, and then we get the record skip and go back to the interviewer, and the interviewer is like, so Armand had the present Armand had went on one of his daily hunts for, he basically pays some nigga to run from him, and then he'll chase them down and then kill them, or he'll give them money and shit if they win and get to a certain point. And the thing is like Louis still with niggas that's eating people while he over here not eating people. You just girl, niggas be making you tired, them fucking toxic passive motherfuckers. And so he goes on his hunt, right? Come to find out, Armand had been fucking with Louis's memory this whole entire time when they first had their first interview. This is based off of the movie. And the interviewer was really young. He was like in his 20s or some shit. And Louis had picked him up at a bar and he interviewed him with the tape. So if you watch the first movie, this is from the book and shit like that. And like they found out that basically Louis still tried to attack him. So Louis ain't clear. He turned into a fucking monster and shit and was doing fuck shit and killing people indiscriminately, and just because, and his excuse was, I'm sad, I'm lonely, I'm numb. Claudia. Shut up, bitch. That's not an excuse to be evil and shit. Okay. But anyways, he's killing people indiscriminately. So he picks this nigga from a bar and he gives him an interview. And then at the end of the interview, the nigga wants the powers. He's like, you got all these magnificent powers. And, oh my gosh, I want the powers. And you just wasting them and whining about them. And da-da-da. And he's just like, what the fuck is you talking about? And so he attacks him. And then he almost kills him. And so, Louis, you a piece of shit. And then Armand comes in and basically he's mad because Louis just kept talking about Lestat. And obviously he's still in love with Lestat and da 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 da. And Louie is like, what the fuck are you talking about? Blah blah blah. And he wants to know, what is it about this boy you just interviewed that makes him so enigmatic that you would want to spill your guts when you don't even talk to me about it, and da da da. And then they get into this argument, and he tells him the fucking truth. Like, Claudia didn't love him like Armand and Lestat loved him. No, she didn't, because she loved herself first. She loved him in a way, but she loved herself first. Like, she saw the destructive path you were going down, and she didn't want to attach herself to that, because why? Now, in the book, I'm not 100% sure at this point if, that's true or not, but like, from what I saw in the show, she loved herself like first. That's healthy. And then she grew herself, and she got to know herself, and she started to realize what she liked and what she didn't like, and then she found her future. You could have been a part of that if you loved yourself too, and we can all love ourselves but still find our futures. But you don't. So yeah, she didn't love you like them two codependent ass niggas. Like, fuck, that's unhealthy. Look at y'all over here serial killing everything and doing all this random fuck shit. Like, what are you talking about, girl? Anyways, so like, they're in the apartment, right? And then that statement just fucks Louie up, and so he goes upstairs and walks into the sun because this nigga's depressed, suicidal, all this other stuff. And then Armand, he can walk in the sun because he got the ancient blood, and so over time you don't even need to worry about the sun. See, you don't even need to eat that often, but I like eating food. Like, why? Like, if I could be like Armand but like still eat food, because food tastes good. It has variations of flavors, and people put their heart into it, and you can taste it and shit. Like, that's why you don't kill people and shit, nigga. I'm tired. And so anyways, Armand drags him back down, and it takes, like, he's in hell. He's at this long ass healing process, and while he's healing, like, he over there torturing the interviewer nigga, and then like banging him up and down on the floor, and then he sits him down on his muscles, on his tendons, on his legs, fucking his shit up, getting a cramp. And he's like, tell me what you do that makes him talk to you. So basically, he's trying to mirror this nigga. That's what like narcissists and sociopaths do to like manipulate you. They mirror people. They mirror their facial expressions, their tone of voice, their catchphrases, the way they talk about things, their inflections and things like that, like fucking robots. And so you really do believe that these niggas are normal when they're talking to you, but they're not. And that's what this nigga was trying to do. He's crazy. And so he basically figures out that he's just a black hole, and he's going to kill this motherfucker. But then here comes Louie, don't kill him, blah, 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 blah. And so as we're watching this memory, whatchamacallit, Louie and the reporter are just going back and forth, telling each other what they remember while Armand is out eating on his hunt. And they realize that Armand like erased their memories and shit, that he like did some shit to their memories and shit. And who knows how many times Armand has done some shit like that to Louie. Like, who knows? And Louie's like realizing this. And so like Armand comes back from his hunt, and they're just looking at him like, we remember San Francisco, nigga. And so now Louie's mad and sulking, but he's just still with this motherfucker. And like, what does someone have to do to you for you to do you crave that explosiveness? Like, that happens periodically when they do some toxic shit. Like, do you start to crave it? Like, the dopamine rush from the love bombing and honeymoon periods, do you like start to crave that? I would assume, because that's what runs when you get addicted to substances is dopamine. That's what's making you high. So anything that makes you feel good can make you pump dopamine. And so love bombing over and over again for hundreds of years, I could see it. I could see you staying with some shit like that as a human being. As a human being, you are a human being. You're just a human being with a disorder. It's not what it's you're still because you still come from the same species with the same thought process, with the same feelings, with the same emotions, sometimes even magnified like 20 times and shit. So you the same shit. So I just wonder, like, what is it it's an addiction. It's clearly an addiction because if you tell me that I wouldn't even get to this point. Like off top, I wouldn't have been talking to Armand. You would have to kill me then, shit, fucking nigga. But if you tell me that you've erased part of my memory, I don't care if it's good, bad, in between, on purpose to cover up some shit. I don't care if it's some shit that I may not have wanted to remember. That shit is growth. That shit is a part. It's like the time shit. Like you just ruining a trajectory I could have went because I had that memory. Now I might not be able to. I might go to a worse trajectory because I don't have that memory. And so he did because he's still with this nigga. This nigga erased his fucking memory from that time. And so he's mad at him, but he's just like, whatever. He's just like saucy about it. Like they're so gay. It was so hilarious. They're like trying to decorate the wall after they sold a painting at the same time reading each other for filth. And I was just like, these niggas is gay. That shit was hilarious. I loved it. These niggas are actors. I have to say that. These niggas are actors. These monologues, the emotions. I live. It's magical. Yes. Anyways, they go back to the story, and now the reporter's skeptical. Louie is pretending like he's skeptical, but let that nigga suck his dick sideways one good time, and he'll be right back on that motherfucker. So I don't know how skeptical. So I would say pretending to be skeptical. So like they're on stage. And then here comes Lestat. And Lestat isn't all burnt up like he was in the book and shit like that. He looks regular. And Lestat like throwing niggas under the bus. He like, and then he gets to the part where he dropped that nigga from the sky and he want to get all teary eyed and shit. And I fell for that shit. Girl, that's when I realized why Claudia was there. He was on the stage monologuing, talking about, and I dropped him, and that he was a broken man for months, and it was my fault, and I'm so sorry, and the girl, I was falling for it. I was just like, he's sorry. And here come Claudia voice right behind Louie talking about, don't listen to him, Louie, he's just trying to draw you. And I was just like, oh shit. It was like somebody woke me the fuck up, bitch. You see how insidious these niggas are? You just wanted to believe it. Sitting up there looking like a young Brad Pitt and everything. And I was just like, I wanted to believe it. But no, drew me right back. I was just like, yes, bitch. That's why this bitch here. And that's why she was the voice of sanity. She was the sanest you gonna get in that bunch. So she was the voice of sanity in this motherfucker because she loved herself enough to not be codependent on these niggas. And that's why they were so attached to her too. Broken niggas be attached to non-broken niggas. They want that essence of your happiness, and they can't create it in themselves, so they try to soak it up from you. Like, how dare you be happy? How dare you be happier than me and shit. And I think that's what she was in the group, and that's why they keep bringing her the fuck up, even though like you talked to the whole devil and you didn't ask this bitch nothing. Maybe he did. I didn't see nothing on the summary on Wikipedia, but he could have probably did. And so, I'm just, he sat up there, he was complicit. I don't care. Talking about, I'm sorry in his book. I'm so sorry, I regret all of it. And no, you don't. No, I don't care. I don't give a fuck. I don't believe it. It's not real. I seen too much. I seen behind the curtain. It ain't real. Because as soon as somebody pushes your button just right enough, you're going to be the same nigga. You're just waiting for your button to get pushed harder. It's harder and harder to push it as we get book by book. But like, it's still there. Whatever the fuck made you say all that shit. Because you went home in the book, you went home and you slept for 10 years. You could have did that in the first place. You just wanted you wanted to have the option to be around, you selfish motherfucker. The option to be around was more important than having your child. You didn't give a fuck about that bitch. So anyways, any- anyways, they on the stage, he doing his little sob story, Claudia pulling his back in, and then like they decide to say guilty on all charges and kill these niggas. And then when they get to Louie, somebody makes the crowd say not guilty, or say that the sentence is banishment instead of getting killed. You can do that for so you no, because one, when he thought it was Armand was like, well, they beat me up and drained me in, so I didn't have enough strength to save you both. But Lestat was whole and hearty. He was up there, skin glistening, looking like a 1995 Brad Pitt. You know, but you say you love her so much. You had the option to. Is it in the book? Did I miss it? Maybe I missed it. It's probably in the books. Because I'm not going to rule it out because I haven't read the books all the way through in a long fucking time. And I just read some summaries and some Reddit posts. But, like, I just feel like for the sake of the show, you said you were sorry in the show and you felt bad about it. And she looked at you and all while she was dying and blah, 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 blah. But, like, you was hell and whole and hearty. You could have saved her and you didn't. Why? Why couldn't you have at least saved her and Louie? You know, Madeline was new. She didn't know nothing. So technically, she had a choice to leave. She didn't want to leave and shit. So maybe they would have still given her that choice. But they could have both been in the box of sand. And see, every step he takes, he destroys some shit. And no one's clocking this shit. It's like a tragic Lestat going through things, Lestat. Like, And I'm just like, okay, girl, whatever, nigga. I don't. Yes, true crime. This is supernatural true crime. I tell you what. And so like they basically torched both them bitches. And then they put Louie in a box with some sand, and like apparently he has sand still embedded in his skin, and he refuses to. You self-harming motherfuckers. Oh gosh, it's every step he takes, he gotta fuck his own life up, and shit. And they love that shit. It was like a continuous emotional sponge that they could drink off of. And they love that shit. And that's why both them niggas wanted them, because both them niggas in the toxic world are like considered alpha niggas. They're the niggas that need to be on top and in control of the bitches that they with. It's not strong. It's weak. You're not strong enough to allow yourself to be vulnerable. You're not strong enough to allow people that you care about to be vulnerable and be themselves. And so it's weak in reality. But in their fucked up world, it makes them alphas. And that's why Louie couldn't be with Armand. And Armand couldn't be with Louie like that. Because they both want to be on top. And both them niggas was not going to allow the either or to be on top. But Louie's a whole bottom. Like, he's just a wet rag on the ground. Like, that's constantly wet that you can just soak yourself in and still come back for more until this nigga's broken to the point. You just have to, like, stop his suicide attempts and shit. And then Merrick, they gave him some super blood from Lestat that he had. I think he drank the blood from the devil or some shit. And they gave him the super blood, and now he can't die in the sun either. You have to chop his head off or some shit. But apparently she changed it in the books to where like it went from chop the head off, you die immediately, to chop the head off, and like you could, if you attach it quick, if you reattach it quick, then you know they could live through that. Like in Armand's book, apparently he gonna sit up there and say he tried to. So apparently he tried to reattach Claudia's dead head to a adult vampire body after they burned her and shit. I guess he cut her head off before her head could burn or some shit. And like, no. Like, in Interview for a Vampire, you would have noticed if her head was missing, honey. Like, they were clutching each other. Like, no. See, just Armand be lying. Oh, sneaky bastard motherfuckers. Oh, shit, I'm tired. So, like, they got this nigga. They killed the little girls. And then... so Louie is in the box for a minute though. Like, he's in the box for a minute, and then one day someone comes and saves him. Armand said it was him, but in reality it was Lestat. And we find all this out because Louie goes on this mission. Like, he's hearing and seeing shit. Like, I think he's schizophrenic. Like, I feel like his brother was seeing and hearing shit. Like, he tried to play it off and be like, no, when the reporter asked him, are you schizophrenic? He tried to play it off and be like, no, I'm not schizophrenic. And no, honey, I think because the other vampires aren't seeing and hearing the things and the people. So he's over here draining and killing people in the crypt. And like, the bodies is piling up, and the dead people are talking to him too. So not just Lestat was talking to him, the dead people was talking. So he got some shit going on and shit. God bless him over here killing just bodies everywhere. You got to push him to a limit where he does some crazy people shit, like kill a bunch of people that have children and livelihoods and feelings and emotions and shit. That's what I mean. Sociopath. It's just like, it's at my convenience if I want to have empathy. That's what I mean. It's at my convenience. Like, today I feel like having empathy and care and not eating people. But tomorrow, you ran into me with your car. Die. I don't care if it was an accident. You cut me off in my sentence when I was talking. Die. I'm mad. So anyways, Louie plots to burn down the theater and shit. And so he burns down the theater and shit. And then, like, he runs off with Armand and shit. In the show, like, he finds Lestat. And he's like, I'm going to be with Armand. I was like, you're going to show him, huh, honey? You stupid ass. He was like, I'm going to punish you by being with Armand forever. And I'm just like, okay, honey, you just bouncing between brick walls. They're not different. Like, these are not soft, comforting arms to hold you tight, honey. Like, they don't care about you like that. They just want to, like, take from you. So it wasn't Armand's blood that woke up Louis. It was Lestat's blood. And we find all this out because what happens is the Talamasca got in contact with the reporter, with the, interviewer dude. The Talamasca is like this ancient organization that studies cryptids. mythical creatures, and just documents their movements and their evolution and basically their history. And sometimes there's some fucked up shit that be happening with the Talamasca, where there's evil, subsets that want to take over everything or kill all the mythical creatures or whatever. And then sometimes some members of the Talamasca get turned into a mythical creature. But they just always there, always in the background, collecting information. Their little saying is something along the lines of observe and don't interact or some shit like that. But like, they be interacting a lot. And so like, one of the members contacts him and he wants him to edit the book through the Talamasca. So the Talamasca can have like record of whatever and all this other stuff and have access to it and own the copyright or whatever the fuck. I don't know. And so like, they basically feed him information, and come to find out that, so the night he burned down the place, the theater, 4 of them tried to get away. He killed 3 of them, but 1 of them got away, and now he's like a DJ somewhere in some European country or some shit like that. And he had a copy of the last script they did. And on the script, like Armand always likes to write notes on his script. He's the director of the theater. And so he always likes to write notes in the margins of his script. So he was writing notes. So they basically made a play called Trial. That was the play for, Claudia and Madeline. They was murdered in that play. And he kept saying that it was always Sebastian, the dude that was trying to usurp him and shit. It was always Sebastian. He was the one that was trying to usurp him. He was the one that was trying to do this. He was the one that orchestrated all this shit. And come to find out that he was the one that was directing the play. He was the one that was directing Lestat. He was the one that was doing all the evil shit in the background and blah, 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 blah. And this is what finally makes whatchamacallit leave his ass. And I was just like, because in the book he is with Armand for another 100 years, and he don't know that Armand when Armand confessed to him in the book, because like basically he went into this weird ass emotionally catatonic, depression, and like Armand got tired of it. Like the dude was just numb. He was drinking. He was emotionally abusive. And then he wanted to be like, in the show he wanted to be the dominant one and play pretend and shit like that while Armand was orchestrating shit in the background and stuff. And so like basically in the book Armand got tired, and he figured that if so first he tried to like take Louie to Lestat. He thought taking Louie to Lestat would make him perk up and snap out of it and be a better companion and shit like that. Just traumatized. Trauma's gonna make you turn it all around. I know it is. Just doing the same old shit. I'm tired. And then that didn't do nothing. He still felt numb in the book. He felt numb when he came back with Lestat the first time. And so, like, then he just confessed to killing Claudia. So just even anger, like a little fucking child. Even anger, at least it's attention. Just fucking children. Just fucking children. And so, like, Louie in the book is just like, well, I mean, I kind of already knew, so... he was just waiting for the nigga to tell him just to leave. Like... He left him after that, but it was just like he kind of already knew, and I just feel like just like you kind of already knew, like that Lestat was Lestat. Like I'm tired. You just be like, is it an addiction? Is it? Let me know what's going on. And so like when he finds this out, that this nigga like basically orchestrated the whole play and did all this. So in the show, when he finds it out, he leaves him, right? And like they break up, and then he thanks the reporter for bringing back his memories that this nigga's took from him shit and bringing the truth to light. And then the nigga writes the book, and that's like in that universe, Interview with a Vampire and stuff like that. And he gets turned into a vampire, of course, eventually. I think he was in the reporter dude. They brought him back in Queen of the Damned too. I don't know if he got turned into a vampire though in that movie or in that book. But they be turning niggas into vampires random. They be like holding on. It's like foreplay. They like play hard to get and shit. Like, oh no, I can't turn you into a vampire. And they be fucking these niggas and shit. And then they eventually, the niggas that they fuck, they're gonna eventually turn into vampires. Just get used to that if you're gonna start reading, Anne Rice and shit. Everybody that gets fucked eventually gets turned into a vampire. Even in the Mayfair witch. Everybody gets fucked by a vampire, but she gets turned into a vampire. Except for the main witch. She didn't get turned into a vampire, I don't think. And so basically, Louie puts an ultimatum out into the world because now, like, the book is released. He's told all the vampire secrets. All the vampire knows that he killed them people in Paris and that he tried to kill Lestat and all. So now they trying to come after him, right? So he puts out like a call to arms and shit, and it's like, come get me niggas and shit at the end of the show. And I'm just like, no one likes to sleep. No one likes naps and peace and relaxation and not chaos and Like I couldn't be a vampire. Like I'm just not doing all this. Like it's drinking the blood and killing the people and sadness and miserable traumatizations and trying to justify sociopathy with like, oh, we're apex predators. And no, nigga, you still think, feel, and act like human beings for hundreds of years. You just keep doing the same shit just like a human. That's just like you were when you were a regular human. You don't just switch up like that, nigga. What is you talking about? I hate it, y'all. But this review is hell long. I went through like at least one whole card thing that goes in the camera. SD card. This is the second SD card. I'm probably not gonna edit most of this shit out either. It's just because I feel like everything I said was important. I don't give a shit. But this show got a chokehold. I don't know, because I like to do just black shows, and Louie isn't necessarily featured like that in the other books. And like, I don't know if there's gonna be like another black lead. So I don't know if I'll be able to do next season, because I really want to stick to just doing black shows. Because once you let one in it, no, for real, once you let one in and then you try to make excuses for others and shit, and I'm just like, what is this, the bait and switch, nigga? They already signed up for a third season. I mean, the next book is The Vampire Lestat. That's about his white life. His very, very, very white life. Like, I don't know what you... His very, very, very white, sociopathic, narcissistic, borderline life. I don't know. Maybe. I just don't want to do a white show. I want to do black people. I want to do my people, like black leads and shit. Because who does it? Because we need the mental health and shit. And so why not do the mental health in a fun way with fun representation? There you go. What's wrong with that? Nothing. So I don't know. It depends. Let's see how third season go, and we'll see. We'll see. But whoever gets to slog through this 2-hour 30-minute video, kudos to you. I could have split it off and did one this week, one next week, but I didn't get this. Once I start something, I have to finish it. No, because I don't want to have to. I'm not slogging through any more Anne Rice. I had an Anne Rice moment when I was in New Zealand. Had an Anne Rice, moment when I was in undergrad. Her moments need to be spread apart because her shit is so dense and intense. Like, it just make you feel things that I don't really disgust. Sadness, all the things. So let me know what you thought of this review. Let me know what you thought of this review. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope it was informative, and later days.